Good morning. Hey, it's Michael with Interstate PR, and I am again broadcasting live from my home studio. And today we are going another semi-international flair. I have a very good friend of mine, actually my youngest son's godfather, Dick Stuart, on with me. And Dick is in Puerto Rico right now, well, off the coast of Puerto Rico. Afternoon, Dick.
Hello, Michael. Good to see
How are
you.
you? It's good to see you. It's been a while.
I'm sorry you broke up. What was that?
Oh, I said it's been a while since we've had the chance to see you. You've been
Yeah,
sailing around the Caribbean.
yes, yeah. I actually got to the Bahamas on March 1st. Goal was to help a friend sail his boat to Puerto Rico. And in the middle of all that, we got COVID-19. By that, I mean, neither of us are infected. We're fine. We're probably, you know, as isolated as one could be, but it certainly has impacted our ability to move about the Caribbean. So
Yeah, so you were sailing from the Bahamas to Puerto Rico, and
yes,
clearly during that time, COVID-19 broke out all over the world.
right.
Uh, how did you guys find out what was going on in the world and all that fun stuff?
Well, most of the places we went, we had here's an unpaid solicitation for T-Mobile because I had internet connectivity, and so we were able to keep track of one, weather, which is critically important when you're sailing, but two, also of what was going on relative to the different places we needed to stop. There are websites that cruisers use that keep track of this information. So you can go to a website, say, hey, I'm going to be in the Dominican Republic as an example, which was one of our stops en route to Puerto Rico, and find out what criteria has to be met if you can go, which ports are open, whether or not you can get in there, if you get in, if you can leave, um, are there provisions available, this kind of stuff. And so we had connectivity everywhere we were, so that allowed us to kind of keep track of what was going on relative to the virus and the restrictions that ultimately were put upon us.
Yeah, so you're actually not even on your boat right now. You're on your friend's boat. Um,
Correct.
And so life has got to be even a little less normal than usual for you. Um, what are some of the restrictions? Well, actually, I saw, like I said, Dick is my youngest son, CJ's godfather, and I saw that you posted on Facebook about trying to get back into Puerto Rico, and you guys had an interesting experience.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us about that experience and all the things that happened and what finally got you guys back in.
Well, we arrived at 3:30 a.m. on Saturday, the 28th of March, uh, and unbeknownst to us that morning, later that morning, Customs and Border Protection issued an edict that no foreign vessels were going to be allowed to enter. And my friend is a Canadian citizen, and his vessel's Canadian registered vessel. But fortunately for us, the CBP agents that were at the marina, and there were only four marinas, one on each coast of Puerto Rico, that were accepting where you could clear in. So normally that's not the case. There's a variety of places you can clear in. My marina in Fajardo being one of them. But currently there's one south of my marina, which is on the east coast. There's one in San Juan on the north coast. There's the marina where we are here in Puerto Real, which is on the southwest coast. And then there's one in Ponce on the south coast. So in terms of clearing in from another country, you're restricted to those four options. The CBP agents that were here that Saturday morning that we arrived left their office before that memo was printed, so they didn't have it. And as a result, they cleared us in. And so we have got the document. Tommy's been given permission to stay in the United States for 6 months. And that was a major hurdle that could have been, a pretty serious nightmare for him. I mean, I'm a U.S. citizen. I got cleared in, no problem, and I could have stayed. But I made a commitment to him that I would get him to Fajardo, and so I'm following through on that commitment. But we kind of dodged a bullet there. And then the marinas themselves are controlled. It's one of these situations where there's multiple government agencies that control marine traffic in and around Puerto Rico. You've got the United States Coast Guard. They help mariners in distress. Then you've got Customs and Border Protection, which takes care of entry of vessels coming from a foreign port, be they foreign vessels or U.S. documented vessels, such as myself. We all clear in through Customs and Border Protection. Then there's two other Puerto Rican agencies. One is the police, or Policía, and they have police boats that patrol and enforce. The first time I arrived in Puerto Rico, well, not the first time, but when I came to Puerto Rico from the Dominican Republic several years ago, we arrived about 1 a.m. and a police boat met us, and they were perfectly fine. We explained what we were doing. It wasn't any problem. And then aside from the police, you also have the DNRA, which is an acronym for the Department of Natural Resources for Puerto Rico. And the DNRA actually controls the marinas themselves and whether or not you can go in and out of them. They control the anchorages. They have enforced foreign vessels' lack of ability to anchor here since the shutdown. So it's been, and they're the ones that basically have told us that if we leave this anchorage, we won't be allowed back in. So we've completed our 2-week quarantine, but that actually doesn't mean anything because the marinas themselves are still shut down and the anchorages are shut down. So we can't go anywhere for now. We're hopeful that situation will change on May 4th, but it seems like everywhere, the rules change. So we'll just kind of keeping our fingers crossed and praying on a regular basis that they will allow us to get back to Fajardo. It would make our lives much more comfortable. So.
I'm sure it would. How far are you guys offshore right now with your anchorage? And is it easy for you to get in to get supplies and that type of stuff that you need? And how is it for your friend who's a Canadian citizen to get in? Do you have to go with him, or is he able to move about?
Well, we're actually in a bay called Puerto Real. It is it's a beautiful and very nice, well-protected anchorage. The water, I mean, one of the things that you experience when you're cruising on a sailboat and you're in an anchorage is there's some that are better than others. Some are very well protected and calm, and the waters are smooth and the boat doesn't move around much. And there are others where that's not the case, and it makes life aboard a little less comfortable. This particular anchorage is well protected. It's probably uh, maybe a half mile in radius, a mile across in every direction. It's pretty symmetrical, and there is a marina with a dock and a fuel dock. So we were able to fuel up when we got here, and we have the ability now, given we've completed our quarantine, to take the dinghy, which is just a small, what they call an RIB. We can take the dinghy from the boat into the marina and go ashore. We've got to wear a mask, which in our case is a T-shirt tied around our nose and mouth, and gloves. But then we can actually get a cab and go to the grocery store, go to the pharmacy. So that's an option. That's an option. But beyond that, the anchorage itself is really nice. So, and I apologize. Tommy just came
No,
downstairs to grab a beer. If you hear him talking in the background,
it's quite all right. You're out in the beautiful area and enjoying. It sounds like you're enjoying life too, even though the situation maybe is not the most optimal at this time. But that's we persevere and overcome, right?
well, yeah. I mean, what purpose is served in getting angry with something you can't change, right?
Right. Right.
It's helped me a lot to just set aside some time in the evenings to go swimming. I went a few days ago, and it was late enough. The sun was going down, and the sun sets here right through the opening in the reef where you come into this bay, and so the sunsets pretty much every night are just spectacular. And I happened to be swimming this particular evening, and being on the water with your eyes at water level and watching the sun go down. I mean, it's just one of these things. It's completely indescribable. And we had a dolphin swim around the boat a couple of nights, and it was dark, and you could hear him breathing, and that's cool. So
Yeah.
you gotta look for the fun stuff, the highlights, and not worry about the things you can't control, and get on with life, right?
Absolutely. So, that excuse me, brings up a really interesting topic that I've been talking to a lot of people about, Dick, which is that I know that you're very strong in your faith. How has your faith helped you through this time um, of being in a quarantine and not necessarily being in the comforts of your own boat? And not
Right.
knowing what's going on day to day and that type of stuff. And your kids are here in the United States. I'm sure you're able to talk with them, but I mean, how are you?
Right.
How is your faith helping you get through all that?
Well, I pray every morning, um, for my kids, for the country, for our leaders to make rational decisions based on fact and not emotion. But we're kind of in uncharted territories, and beyond that, faith. Michael, you know what I've been through the last few years, right?
I
And
I know very very well. I know
yeah,
sure.
so without that, I don't know how you, I don't know how you do it. I just don't. And I'm someone who has a very positive attitude and a positive outlook on life, and you know, this too shall pass, right? I mean, whatever comes our way, I think you just have to, accept the things that you can't change, and deal with other things the best way that you can, and pay attention to God and His, what He's trying to tell and tell you, and move on with life. So
So are you I know there's a lot of I mean even the Vatican now is streaming masses on a daily basis. Uh are you tuning into any of those, seeing that you have data where you're going and that type of stuff? Or are you kind of like me? I tune in because I'm helping out our church. But it's not the same experience of actually getting up and going into church. And as a Catholic,
yeah,
as a cradle
right,
Catholic,
right,
not going to church unless I've taken communion, right? So
right.
it's a little bit of a weird experience right now in life, right?
It is, and the answer is I haven't. The answer is no. I haven't participated with online mass. I did on Easter Sunday. I have friends here in Puerto Rico who go to a small church here. It's a Christian church, not Catholic, and they did a Zoom meeting, and I tried that. It was okay. I mean, but you're right. It's not the same.
It's just not
It's
the
not the
same.
same. Yeah, yeah,
Something that's missing. Like you don't
yeah.
feel the same. Like you walk into to the church and you can feel the presence of God. You can feel the Holy Spirit, and
Right,
just watching it online. While it's great to hear the liturgy of the Word and the readings and see it all, it's just not the same. There's something missing.
right, right.
And there's something so beautiful about receiving the host and receiving communion that I don't know.
Yes,
For me, it's made it even more like of a sacred and special thing. So I just wondering, especially since you're in kind of a situation that not many people are in, right? Um, I'm sure there's other people in the world that are in kind of the same situation, but I know many people all over the world and back here in California in the United States, and um, it's just kind of an interesting spot that you're put in right this second. So I mean, it's good to hear that you can get to shore and get necessities and that type of stuff. We were talking before we went live that it's getting warm there.
yeah, yeah. And I apologize for your viewers if I don't have a shirt on, because current temperature is 87 degrees. It's overcast. The winds are actually somewhat light today. I'm in the salon of the boat down below, and so there's very little air movement and no air conditioning. So I have a couple of pair of board shorts that I hand wash when they're dirty, and that's what I live in. I just there's having clothes on here is yeah, it's just a bit warm for that. So is what
Yeah,
it is.
and the other thing that we were talking about, a lot of people are fortunate we're on land, so I can my wife and kids, Crystal and the boys, and I are going for bike rides. We're walking down to the park and that type of stuff. But you're on a boat; you can only walk around the deck so many times without getting bored. Uh, so
Right.
you're swimming and that type of stuff. Anything else that you're doing to kind of keep the blood pumping and the air flowing and feeling good about yourself?
Well, yeah. Last night, instead of swimming, uh, I scraped the hull. So boats don't like sailboats. Well, boats that live in the water don't like to be stationary, and when they are, um, stuff grows on the bottom, and you put bottom paint on, and sorry, my itch on my nose. I know you're not supposed to touch your face, but yeah. Anyway, um, uh, so when you're underway and you're sailing and there's water moving past the hull, it's self cleaning. It stays clean, and it's not really an issue. Um, but we have been at anchor, um, since the 28th of March. So the boat hasn't moved in 3.5. Well, it'll be 4 weeks tomorrow, and you get growth. And assuming we're going to be given permission to go here in another week and a half or so, I figured, as opposed to just swimming laps around the boat, I would do something productive. So yeah, I treaded water and used it's the kind of scraper you use for drywall, the kind of spring metal scraper, and you just scrape the hull and scrape the barnacles off and the growth, and the boats need to be slippery when you're sailing, otherwise it slows you down. And even though we don't go that fast, we still want to go as fast as we can. So having a clean hull is what is important. So
For sure. So are you getting all your information right now from these websites you were talking about earlier? Are the authorities in contact with you guys, kind of giving you updates? How are you going to be able to find out that, hey, we can kind of continue on our trek? And then and a follow up to that is, once you continue on your trek, how far are you from your final destination where you're at right now?
We are on the southwest corner of the island, and my marina, and where Tom's going to anchor just outside of my marina, where my boat is roughly 110 nautical miles. So what we will do once we have clearance is we'll leave probably noon, 1 o'clock, something like that. And then we will sail overnight, and it'll take us roughly 20 hours to do that 110 miles. The the sailing conditions going in that direction are such that it's likely we will have the wind on our nose. It's one of the things that you do before you ever leave is check the weather, wind, sea state, all this kind of stuff, so you're prepared, what kind of conditions to expect. And we're way too far out to even be looking at that now, but we'll do that once we get permission. And then you configure the boat accordingly. But we were already topped off on fuel. We've used very little fuel. We'll run the engine every couple of days to kind of help charge up the batteries, because everything on the boat runs off 12 volt. And then it's likely that we will end up motor sailing. So you'll have the sails up, but just they'll be trimmed in real tight, and then we'll run the engine to maintain probably 6 knots, and that'll get us there in 18 to 20 hours, something like that. So we'd be there, if we left Monday afternoon, we'd be there Tuesday morning. Give us all day to get cleared in. Being a foreign vessel, he has to clear into every port. So we would leave Puerto Real and then have to clear into Fajardo, meet Customs and Border Protection, and do all that. They've got to actually come to the boat to do that. So.
And how are you going to get that message that you're able to go? Are they contacting you directly, giving you kind of permission, or are you just kind of listening to websites and then following up with the authorities yourself?
There is a website that I'm following. They've actually got a Facebook page.
Oh.
And so I kind of keep track of them on Facebook, and they are taking the DNRA, which is what is now the Puerto Rican agency that I mentioned before, that's controlling movement of vessels in and out of marinas and the anchorages and the like. They do have a website. However, it's all in Spanish, and my Spanish isn't good enough to navigate through the website, especially given the technical terms and everything. And it's like a lot of government websites. It's not particularly user friendly, so you can find information. So this Facebook page is doing that for people who were basically in our same situation, all of that. And they are taking, like, the notice that we got the first of this week was the information that I'm working from right today, relative to hopefully being able to move on May 4th. And they go through the notice and translate it to English and then post it on their Facebook page. That's working.
Looks like we may have lost connection with Dick here. He may pop back in again. He is actually sitting on his friend's boat in a bay in Puerto Rico, and you heard kind of some of his things that he has had to go through sitting out there. But that's great. He just sent me a message that he's popping back in now. Looks like we're reconnecting here.
Oh,
there you go.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. I was just saying that you're sitting out in the middle of a bay, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting the world's best reception. They don't have cell phone towers in the water. So,
well, yeah, it's interesting because my service here, actually, in terms of the signal strength, it's amazing. I typically have a minimum of 3 bars. Most of the time it's 4 bars LTE. But I think because of the situation, the system is getting, everybody's streaming. There's, in Puerto Rico, pretty much the only people that have landlines are businesses. So everybody survives using a cell phone. And now everybody's at home. They're streaming. I think it's just the system's being taxed. My connection speed is less than ideal sometimes.
yeah, sure, I get that. Roger is doing school through a Chromebook, and he's on it all day doing schoolwork. But that's just one more device from. And then Jacob and CJ are on iPads doing stuff for school. Crystal's working from home, and she's doing Zoom meetings. And then we've
all of a sudden bandwidth is a huge deal.
Exactly. It's like I had this nice office to myself where the internet connection was great, and now all of a sudden I have 4 people sharing it with me. Not that I'm complaining about that at all. I love having them around.
Right.
It is. I find myself a little less productive than before, but that's okay. I get to spend more time with my kids, so that's a blessing. So. Well, Dick, I'm really glad that we were able to connect. You've got such an interesting story about what's going on in your life with COVID-19 and how it's made things a little different than the plan was, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
But I think it's also a great story for people to hear about how, it's easy to adapt and overcome and to, stay the course. It's very commendable that you made this promise to your friend, and you could have gotten off the boat and probably gone on land to get back to yours, but you're sitting there with him, making sure that he gets to his final destination. And not everybody in the world does that type of stuff, and I know that's the type of person you are. But I think it's really commendable that you're doing that as well. It's great to hear also how you're using your faith to get through this time. And we talked offline, but your family, your kids are doing well. And that's great too. And so it's a great thing. And I really appreciate you kind of spending the time and telling me and the people watching what's going on. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that in Sacramento, because I shared this, or in other places that have been watching, getting their update from Captain Dick Stuart here.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's an interesting experience, and I'm blessed. It's there's an awful lot of people that have it way worse than we do. If we need food, we can get it. We haven't run out of alcohol yet, so that's all good. I can get exercise, so I wish I could go for a walk, but I know that'll happen soon enough. So
Yeah. Well, I know that I have 4 people here that would love to say hello to you. So if you can stick on after we go off, I'm going to bring them in so they
okay,
can say hi real quick. But I also want to
okay,
make sure that I'm not taking up your time. I know you have a lot of things that you would love to get probably doing.
yeah, right.
um, but and maybe it's just enjoying a cold beer on the deck and looking at the sun and that type of stuff. But I really do appreciate you taking the time, Dick. I think it's a really interesting story of what you've had to go through these past 4 or 5 weeks, um, and it's even more interesting when you throw in the fact that you're an American citizen, right by American soil, but on a foreign vessel. Uh,
Right.
so that story is fun in itself. So it's great seeing you. Keep well. I know
I will for sure.
we
Thanks,
text
Michael.
often, that's great. And I really appreciate you coming in. If there's anything that advice or anything that you want to say to anybody before we sign off,
Keep your faith. We'll come through this, and we'll all be stronger when we do.
that's great advice, Dick. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And Dick, I'll go get those people right now.
Great.